What's up, guys? Welcome back to FishOfHex. My name is Travis. Today we're going to talk about Vermetid Snails, a pest snail. Now, the reason why I decided to make this video is over the last couple weeks, I've gotten a couple comments saying, hey, you have Vermetid Snails in your 300 gallon and you should not be talking about pest or quarantine or anything like that. Now, it could have been the same dude with multiple accounts, who knows, but I figured, full disclosure on this channel, I talk about everything that's going on here in the fish room, so let's go ahead and talk about the Vermetid Snails, how I got them, even after quarantining the specific coral that brought them in, and I'll talk about how you guys can remove them and what I have learned so I will never ever get them again. So with that said, let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so let's go ahead and first talk about what a Vermetid snail is and how do you get them. Well, they look just like tube worms. Most people think that they are, but they actually are a snail. Now, they will stay on the base of your rock or at the bottom of LPS corals like lobos, hammers, and torches, which I'll talk about here in a second. And they actually send out this net. So when they sense food in the water, or you just fed your fish, you're doing coral foods and stuff like that, they'll send out this net that will catch those fine particles. They'll bring that net back in, they'll eat, and they'll continue to grow and reproduce like crazy. Now, if you have a bare bottom tank with a lot of flow, or you're feeding a lot of coral foods, or you're feeding a lot of fine particle foods like I do here in the fish room, they will explode and grow really, really quickly. Okay, so let's go ahead and talk about how you get Vermetid snails. Now, there are three main ways. The first one's going to be coming in with your coral. It can be on the disc, the frag plug, or the rock or skeletal structure, or whatever hard surface that you have attached to your coral. It does not grow on the skin or the fleshy part of a coral. It's simply the base. So in my instance, mine came in on that blue lobo on the actual skeletal base, which we'll get into here in a second. Now, when it comes to the second way, it's going to be on your inverts. Anything, again, with a hard surface that they can attach to, you will get them through that. The third way is going to be, of course, live rock. There's not really much you can do about that. It is a hard surface. It's out in the ocean. It could potentially get them. If you do see them at the local fish store, I would definitely not buy that piece of rock, because if you see one, there's going to be more than one. Trust me. Okay, so let's go ahead and talk about how I got Vermetid snails, kind of what I'm doing now to deal with them, and also what I've learned from the experience and what I'm going to do in the future to make sure that I never get them again. Now, if you guys remember that greenish bluish lobo that used to be at the bottom of the 300 gallon, now that coral I originally got in the 125 and was the original coral that brought them into my system. Now, I will admit I wasn't quarantining coral back then. I didn't feel that it was necessary because I wasn't kicked in the balls yet, and I ended up introducing them to the tank with that lobo. Now, when I brought that coral over to the 300 gallon, I put it in quarantine for 30 days. Now, I looked underneath the microscope or whatever, or magnifying glass that I have here, what I use for cutting coral. I made sure I picked off all of them that I could see. I put it in quarantine for 30 days. Nothing popped up in that 30-day period, so I was like, hey, I'm good. I'm going to go ahead and put that in my 300 gallon. Now, unfortunately, 3 months later is when I noticed the very first one on the rock. It was during a water change. I noticed one. I was like, you got to be kidding me. So I went ahead and popped it off. Of course, if you see one, there's going to be more. And I figured, hey, let me go ahead and lift up the bottom of this lobo and let me see if there's any under there. Sure enough, there were a dozen of them under there. I took the coral out, cleaned them off, and put it back in the tank. And I probably, now that I think about it, I probably should have put that coral in quarantine and let it stay in quarantine for several months to see if they would pop back up. But I figured, hey, they're already in the tank. If I'm seeing them on the rock structure, then it's probably going to be too late. So you guys might be asking, how do I know if it was that lobo specifically that brought them in the tank? Could it have been another coral? No, because at that time, every coral that I had was SPS. They did not have a base or a coral plug or frag plug attached to them. They were broken off and glued directly to the rock, so there was no chance of actually getting them that way. And given the fact that when I noticed one and I lifted up the bottom of that LPS and found a dozen of them, it's pretty safe to assure that that's where they came from. Now, what have I been doing over the last year to deal with these guys? They become pretty invasive. Now, when it comes to dealing with them, I use a bumblebee snails. They seem to do a pretty good job, but with the amount of them that I have and how much I feed and all that kind of stuff, it's pretty difficult to take care of them completely. Now, when it comes to them being in here, they're nothing but an eyesore. They don't really negatively affect any coral. I actually find that the SPS will grow over them. They'll grow through the SPS, and then you just plop off the little tube there. The SPS will seal up the tube and then continue growing, and the snail will die from being suffocated. Now, that's pretty much what I'm doing to deal with them, because at this point, there's really no need. There's so many of them. There's nothing that I can really do to take care of them. I know there's certain fish out there. I believe that the copper band butterfly has been one known to eat it, but they also eat SPS, and I'd rather deal with the vermetid snail that's not bothering my coral than deal with a fish that could potentially eat my coral that I'll have to fight to get out of the tank. It's just not worth the risk or the frustration. Okay, so let's go to move on to the last part of this video. How do you prevent them from getting into your tank? Well, the biggest thing is going to be quarantine, and it's going to be, for me personally, an extended quarantine on LPS corals. Anything like hammers, torches, lobos, anything with that hard skeletal structure that they can attach to. With SPS and stuff like that, I don't have to worry about that type of parasite because they're not going to, again, attach to the flesh. I am breaking off the frag plug and the disc and putting that coral directly in the tank, so I don't have to worry about it with that. But I do have to extend the quarantine period. It looks like longer than 30 days because even after 30 days of not seeing them, I still got them on that Lobo. So for me personally, 2 to 3 months is going to be my target for the LPS on my next build. I'm also going to feed a little bit differently in the quarantine tank, do some polyp boosters, some coral food, stuff like that. Do the type of feeding that really promotes them and helps them grow. That way you can catch them early on and remove them. So that's what I'm going to do in the future. And just like I mentioned in my last video, we all make mistakes. We're going to learn from them. And just as long as you don't make the same mistake again, you're going to be good to go. So with that said, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Any questions, let me know. And I'll see you guys later. Peace.